Now, Professor Jagdeep Chhokar, one of India's most steadfast advocates for accountability and transparency in politics, died in New Delhi today after suffering a heart condition. Months ahead of his 81st birthday. An academic, a lawyer, and an engineer by profession, he was also a professor. Professor Chhokar was one of the founding members of the Association for Democratic Reforms, ADR, an NGO known for its pioneering efforts in the field of electoral reforms over the last 25 years. Professor Chhokar had been the lead petitioners in several of ADR's legal crusades that helped usher some of India's most consequential electoral reforms. A few of them include mandatory disclosures of candidates' criminal, financial and educational vote. More recently, he was a key figure in the case that led to electoral bonds being declared as unconstitutional. Separately, ADR has also paved the way for voters to be better informed by sharing pivotal data-based analysis on politicians from time to time. With his passing away, we've lost one of the greatest defenders of democratic ideals in contemporary India. Well, joining me now to discuss his legacy, his contributions, his journey over the last 25 years, I have with me T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner. Also with me is Major General Anil Verma, the head of Association. Joining us, Major General, let me come to you first. You've worked very closely with Professor Jagdeep Chhokar. He's been hosted. We've hosted him on this network multiple occasions. Last we spoke to him, of course, was in light of the electoral reforms exercise. Just a quick glimpse back at his 25-year journey and his contributions in terms of the most critical changes for electoral democracy here in India.
First of all, it's a very sad day for us at ADR. I mean, he was our sort of face of ADR, a relentless crusader for electoral reforms and transparency in the political system. And he was a fearless fighter and a multifaceted personality, I would say. He was a teacher, researcher, writer, bird watcher and conservationist, and also a trained lawyer. He began his career in the Indian Railways and later on went on to the academia, did his MBA from Delhi, then went to do his PhD from Louisiana State University in USA. Thereafter, he joined the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, where he was teaching, and he retired in 2006. There in IIM Ahmedabad, he met Professor Shastri and some other like-minded professors who worried about the state of the criminality and money power in the Indian political system, decided to do something about it, and that is where the ADR was formed. And as you are aware, ADR has played a critical role in enhancing transparency in Indian elections for the last 2 decades or so. Personally, I have been with ADR for about 11 years after my retirement from the army and was in close touch with Professor Chhokar. He was an institution by himself. We learned so much from him, and he mentored and guided the ADR throughout its journey, along with the other trustees, of course. And as you are aware, there have been a number of landmark Supreme Court judgments in favor of ADR because we took up cases wherever we felt that the citizens' rights are being denied or there is a need to have more transparency in the political system. And because of his experience as a lawyer, basically he used to guide us and in the various PILs that were filed by our team. And he was a prolific writer, researcher. I mean, his research papers have been published in all over the world.
Right.
In very prestigious this thing. He's taught in several countries. And not only with ADR, he was associated with a number of organizations. Like one was this Ajivika Bureau. For over 10 years, he's been working with them. They work on the issue of migrant labor and all that. And then he used to also teach at certain universities pro bono
Right.
on certain management issues and all. And basically, I would say a very fine human being he was, a bit short-tempered, of course, but he would fight for whatever he felt was wrong. And his contribution towards the civil society of our country is immense. And I think it is a very major loss for the civil society as well as the whole nation.
Right. Right. In fact, speaking of his contributions, amongst his very first was a PIL that he'd filed way back in 1999. And at the time, that was the PIL which resulted in the 2002 and then the 2003 verdict from the top court, which mandated the antecedents, the criminal, financial, and educational backgrounds of all political leaders to be submitted with the Election Commission. Speaking of the EC, Mr. Krishnamurthy is also with us, joining us live. Mr. Krishnamurthy, when you look back at this journey of Professor Chhokar, what to your mind, as far as the Election Commission is concerned, were the key changes that you observed on account of his intervention, on account of ADR's intervention?
Very good afternoon. I'm thankful to you for inviting me on this occasion, very solemn occasion. I'm extremely sorry and feel very bad about his sudden passing away, Mr. Chhokar. I knew him from the very first day that I was in the Election Commission in 2000. Well, you asked me to judge about his contribution. I think he was a remarkable human being who started a remarkable institution with a lot of credibility. Most of the electoral reforms that came into existence in this country, at least since I joined the Election Commission, he had a role to play because although the decisions were given by the Supreme Court on most of these issues, like filing an affidavit or nota, or any other electoral bonds and so on. They were all given by Supreme Court, not by the government of the day. And these results, these judgments of the Supreme Court came primarily because Association for Democratic Reforms and the Election Commission joined together and supported each other in the bringing of necessary electoral reforms. I feel very sad about his sudden passing away. I'm sure this credible institution that he has built and the remarkable research activities of this institution on various issues related to the Indian elections will always be a testimony to his contribution for electoral reforms.
Right. Let's dive into some specifics. Major General Verma, let me come to you. His journey, at least in terms of the impact that he's had, was at a pinnacle with the electoral bonds case. 2024 Supreme Court scrapped it and saying that there is a right to information, that people should know where their political parties are getting their money from. Give us, for the benefit of our viewers, the essence of that verdict. How important was it in terms of cleansing political funding in India? And is the journey over? Is there more work that's required?
Well, the journey is not over. There's still more to be done because muscle power and money power are still ruling the roost in our political system. And we all know the major, this thing was, the electoral bond scheme was introduced by the government in the name of transparency, whereas it was actually the opposite. Everything was opaque. If you do not know who the donor is, then where is the transparency? But be that as it may, the Supreme Court did not do anything for a few years. It was only in 2019 that the case was taken up, though we had, the hearing was done for the first time, though we had filed the petition immediately after the electoral bond scheme was introduced, saying that this should be scrapped because this is absolutely non-transparent. And of course, then some other people also joined in and helped with the PIL, and when the hearings took place, and ultimately the Supreme Court gave a verdict and scrapped the thing. But I would say a large amount of money, as we know, a few thousand crores had already been donated to the various political parties. Of course, initially it was with the ruling party, then the other smaller parties which were in power in the states also benefited because they also said, why should we be left out? And later on, we all saw how the State Bank of India resisted giving the details of the electoral bonds per se, the paper. And when they were literally forced to do it, then they came out with the details. And after that, we know that various journalists and activists and media houses dug out the whole truth, and so many corporates were found to have donated money to the ruling dispensation. And the quid pro quo, the twisting of arms, and whatever, I mean, the various things which came out. But the issue was that nothing much was done after that. A lot of hue and cry was raised. SIT request was made by various activists to the Supreme Court, but that was not done. So therefore, whatever the money had been received by the political parties went into their coffers. And the right thing would have been for that money to be recovered, because most
Major
of
General.
it was ill-gotten.
Right, so that's clearly what you're saying is a journey and effort that Professor Chhokar had begun that you'd have to continue. Mr. Krishnamurthy, let me come to you. One of the key decisions, one of the key areas where Professor Chhokar had an impact was a Supreme Court decision that required an interim direction at that, which required the appointment of election commissions to be done by a collegium consisting of the Prime Minister, the LOP, as well as the CJI. That was, of course, undone with the central government legislation. How critical are decisions like those, are initiatives like those for ensuring accountability and neutrality of the Election Commission?
I have always taken the stand, going in service and thereafter. I have always taken the stand that the collegium system on the lines of appointment of the CBI director or the Central Vigilance Commissioner should also be followed in the appointment of the election commissioners and the chief election commissioner. But there are two other areas which I think I need to mention. One is about the law relating to political parties. In fact, ADR, under the aegis of both Mr. Chhokar and Mr. Tirulochan Shastri, drafted a model law for regulating the political parties. I remember that I was the committee headed by Justice Venkatachalaya to review the law, and we suggested a lot of changes in the law, which need to be seriously considered by the government. But unfortunately, the law regulating political parties seems to be in the back burner even now. The second point is about the funding of the political parties. He rightly objected to the lack of transparency in the electoral bonds. And I feel it is still an open issue. Unfortunately, he has died prematurely. I think some changes are required in the political funding. I have covered all these aspects in my new book on Beyond the Ballot, Paradoxes of Democracy. Mr. Chhokar and Mr. Shastri, because I have visited them when they were in the IIM Ahmedabad. I have addressed the meetings of ADRs both in Ahmedabad and Delhi. And it is indeed a very unfortunate thing that his work is not completed, but I am sure his institution and like the person who is representing the ADR now, Major Verma, I think they should all take it up and they should not leave this any unattended. I think we have to aggressively fight for electoral reform, because almost all political parties do not seem to be giving any importance to electoral reforms,
right,
which in my opinion are very important. One more thing that I think I should mention is the kind of first past post system that we follow is outdated. It needs to be replaced by a more authentic representative democracy.
Right. We're completely out of time. Major General, I'll come to you for one final comment. Speaking of work that needs to be continued, the SIR matter, the Bihar SIR matter, special intensive revision. ADR is a petitioner there that's being argued before the Apex Court as we speak. Again, what to your mind are some of the important takeaways that ADR will need to be pushing for? Is a delinking of the SIR with the election is something that is required, something that you'll be batting for in the Supreme Court?
Yes, that was one of the prayers of ours, and the since the matter is sub judice, I wouldn't like to say much. The hearings are going on, and the next one is, I think, on Monday. So let's hope that it works out in the interests of the common voter and the citizens, and it becomes a exercise in inclusivity and not exclusion of people.
Right, Major General, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Krishnamurthy, thank you for taking our time to speak to us about Professor Chhokar, his journey. Again, number of contributions, last 25 years, which have taken electoral democracy a step forward. But as both the former CEC, Mr. Krishnamurthy, as well as Major General Verma were pointing out, that there were various initiatives which are still awaiting, which still need regulatory clarity, whether that's regulation of political parties, whether that's instances and exercise of power under the special intensive revision. These are efforts which ADR says they will continue going forward. But that's unfortunately all the time that we have.